Hello, everyone. It's great seeing you once again, and thanks for joining us for this Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 6th day of July, 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, taking a look at the fire danger graphic. Still an area of high to very high fire danger there over the eastern interior, Yukon Flats over to the border, down across Eagle into the mid and upper Tanana Valley, 40 Mile Country, and then it kind of tapers off when you get into the east and northeast Copper River Basin. Still a zone of extreme fire danger along the Copper River, mostly due to gusty winds that continue today, gusting 30-35 miles an hour at Gulkana, and no precipitation falling there, although Paxson, farther to the north, did pick up 0.2 of an inch of rain in the last 24 hours. And also the reason the area kind of pulled back up in the Yukon Flats, precipitation, at least one significant rainfall amount, again a 24-hour amount at Lost Creek, picked up 2/3 of an inch. Otherwise, Beaver to Chalkyitsik had about 0.05 of an inch, just 0.02 of an inch at Fort Yukon, and a couple other areas had more like about 1/10 of an inch. So there was some rainfall up there, and that was enough to eliminate the extreme fire danger and then pull it back to the east a little bit, but wouldn't take much to bring that back again. Otherwise, moving on to the hazardous weather graphics. No watches, no warnings, no advisories anywhere around the state currently, or probably for the foreseeable future, next day or so anyway. And there are satellite imagery showing a system there swinging into the Pribilof Islands, bringing rain and gusty winds up to about 30-35 miles an hour. St. Paul, St. George Island today with rain and fog throughout the day, and that beginning to shift down there in toward the Fox Islands, eastern Aleutians, and even toward Adak. Adak picking up wind gusts head of that band of clouds there. 45 miles an hour from the west-southwest. Otherwise, about 30-35 miles an hour, as I mentioned, in the Pribilofs. Another area of clouds in Bristol Bay with rain associated with that. In fact, actually a widespread area of rain, some of it on the moderate side across the western interior, and then another surge of moisture lifting northeastward. You can see from northeast Bristol Bay early on, and Kodiak Island, cutting right up across Cook Inlet, south central Alaska, but clearing out on the back edge of that. Kenai, clear skies as winds from the south-southwest gusted up to 40 miles an hour this afternoon. Last observation, they're seeing winds gusts close to 40 miles an hour, but with clear skies and sunshine. And so I'd expect that clearing area to ride those winds right up into northern Cook Inlet, Anchorage, Palmer area in the next hour or so. So we should see some pretty good clearing up to the north here as the clouds and rain shift up into the north and northeast. Becomes a little more shower, actually some scattered thunderstorm activity over the eastern Brooks Range area today, but that's about it. And not too much precipitation down into the eastern interior, as I mentioned. Temperatures still rising into the 70s, even with the cloud cover. Upper 70s, 77 at Eagle, 73 at Northway at mid-afternoon. Also over the southern panhandle, sunshine and temperatures. Ketchikan, 72 degrees at mid-afternoon, with Stewart seeing 72 as well. Otherwise cooler with more clouds as you head up to the north, but basically dry over toward Yakutat. Cordova picked up about 1/3 of an inch of precipitation in the last 12 hours, as did Anchorage, about 1/3 of an inch. Independence Mine, though, with the upsloping, picked up 2/3 of an inch of precipitation. And some pretty good rainfall amounts, anywhere from 2 to 4/10 falling at Wasilla, and also up around Butte area, a little less at Palmer, even less, just a few hundredths of an inch around Eklutna Lake. Otherwise, south winds, as I mentioned, gusting 35 miles an hour, keeping the fire dangers pretty high and along the Copper River there at Gulkana. And seeing, pretty windy up over the northwest or the western Brooks Range area. Lookout Ridge, they're at 2,400 feet. Western Brooks Range had peak wind gusts 54 miles an hour out of the south-southwest. And also some winds up over the Yukon Flats. Beaver had south-southwest winds gusting 30 to 35 miles an hour as well. Otherwise, pretty light winds out over the Aleutians today, with the exception of Adak. I'm speaking more of the western Aleutian areas. And low clouds, fog, kind of lifting this afternoon, St. Lawrence Island, but conditions dry. And rolling this to today's chart, again, moderate amounts of precipitation up over the northwest interior. Let's see, Kotzebue had 0.6 of an inch of rainfall in the 12-hour period, again, ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon, kind of mixing 12 and 24-hour amounts there. But you can see widespread area of rain, some of it moderate, some of it more showery, some of it non-existent, like up along the Porcupine River meets the Yukon River. And showers didn't quite make it to Yakutat today, and dry over the Panhandle with variably cloudy skies, warmest temperatures in the south, a little more sunshine. You can also see some that widespread area clearing over Cook Inlet extends all the way down to Kodiak Island there in the Barren Islands. Now be shifting northeastward currently, but more moisture will be following that in behind quite rapidly. A good southwest flow aloft ahead of the trough axis. So more precipitation will come into Cook Inlet later tonight. Pribilof's wet. That'll begin to taper off tonight as that low center pulls off to the southeast, and probably end toward morning. Rain on the increase for the Fox Islands and Alaska Peninsula area. And looks like kind of tapering off of the shower activity over the central interior, but rain or showers, chances of, continue over southern Alaska, especially the North Gulf Coast. Kind of a weak front develops there, but it doesn't get too strong. Some rain should find its way into Yakutat, maybe the north coast of the Panhandle. Otherwise, the inside waters, southern areas stay dry. And the trough keeps showers in the eastern Brooks Range. Another trough puts showers over Kobuk Valley, Selawik Valleys, Noatak Valley. Pretty good chance of showers tonight. Dry, St. Lawrence Island, Seward Peninsula. And for tomorrow, that low center moves across the Alaska Peninsula, so rain periods for the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay, becoming more showery toward evening. Chance of showers Kodiak Island, cloudy, cool, showers of rain, obviously, unless you get high enough. Isolated thunderstorms possible eastern Alaska Range, mountains northeast of Fairbanks, and the eastern Brooks Range once again. With not much change for the Panhandle, a risk of a shower up to the north with the central southern inside waters. More sunshine as you head south. May see lower 70s again over the southern southeast coast. Aleutians, look for some clearing, and winds not too bad tomorrow, or for Wednesday, tomorrow, and maybe some clearing possibly for the Pribilofs by contrast from what you saw today, but some more showers just to your west. And now the outlook for Thursday, better chance of some sunshine for the Pribilofs and the central Aleutians. Warm front, next system spreads rain into the western Aleutians late in the day. And again, another repeat, chilly, cool, cloudy, and damp with rain or showers or isolated thunderstorms over the interior all the way up to the Arctic coast. A little bit better chance of showers over the central and northern Panhandle, nothing to the south. And moving on to low temperatures, 40s to near 50 for the interior, 30s along the central Arctic coast, even back toward Point Lake, Cape Lisburne, lower 50s for the Panhandle. Highs tomorrow struggling to reach 70 in the Yukon Flats, and mid-60s now for the eastern interior, and maybe the southern southeast coast. That'll be the warmest place in the state, maybe pushing 70, 71, mid-50s Kodiak Island, 50s and lower 60s most everywhere else. And for the lows, Thursday morning, mid to upper 30s western central Arctic coast, mid-40s on the east side there. Otherwise, 40s over all of the interior to near 50, maybe around Anchorage, but lows in the 40s and maybe lower 50s for the Panhandle, followed by highs Thursday afternoon, about like tomorrow, 60s, mid-60s for the Tanana Valley, near 70 Yukon Flats, and cooler for the Panhandle down south, mid-60s there to mid-50s to near 60 north. Bering Sea, lower to mid-50s, west central interior, mid-50s, and just shade above 50 along the southwest coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather for Wednesday morning, IFR along most of the Arctic coast, but VFR for the North Slope, IFR southern slopes of the western Brooks Range, Noatak Valley, looks like Kobuk, Selawik Valleys as well, all the way down across Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, down to Dillingham, Togiak, and marginal for the Pribilofs, but IFR, Alaska Peninsula, Fox Islands, all the way over to Adak, improving though to almost VFR for Chimiana 2. VFR, Cook Inlet, Susitna Valley, most of the Kenai Peninsula, marginal Prince William Sound. Looks like some IFR there, Central Alaska Range in areas down to the Talkeetnas, Wrangell Mountains, areas of Upper Tanana Valley, White Mountains into the Yukon River there, and around Eagle, marginal. Copper River Basin, marginal. North Gulf Coast, same thing. IFR, Yakutat, down along the coastline of the Panhandle, otherwise marginal. And for the afternoon on Wednesday, we've got conditions, just some spotty marginal VFR over the eastern interior, otherwise VFR central interior, and then western Alaska Range westward out to the coastline, marginal VFR. That extends northward to the southern slopes of the central western Brooks Range. Looks like some IFR, though, into the afternoon for Selwyn Valley, possibly Kotzebue. Otherwise, marginal VFR for the Arctic coast. IFR, Bering Strait, southern Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island. Right on down, IFR moves back into the Pribilof Islands, staying north of the Aleutians. VFR from Amchitka to Shimia, marginal VFR from Amchitka all the way to the mid-Alaska Peninsula. Bristol Bay, IFR, southwest Kodiak Island, southern Shelikof Strait, IFR, and a band of IFR extending northeastward from the across the Gulf there to Yakutat, marginal VFR for the Panhandle. On to Thursday morning, VFR north of the Alaska Range, some marginal VFR along the Brooks Range, back to marginal for the eastern and central North Slope, marginal VFR eastern and central Arctic Coast IFR on the west side, IFR northwest coast, Noatak Valley into the western Brooks Range to Long Mountains, Kotzebue Sound, and then some IFR from the Bering Sea and the Pribilofs right up to the southwest coast, Nunivak Island and the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, north shore of Unalaska Island, and then IFR from Adak to Chimiana 2, IFR just south of Montague Island, and very close to Yakutat, not quite making it to Elfin Cove, otherwise marginal for the Panhandle. And for the afternoon, basically VFR, best chance of sunshine, Copper River Basin, central Upper Tanana Valley, White Mountains, Chena, Hot Springs, and Yukon Flats, Porcupine River, North Slope, eastern central areas, otherwise cloudy and lower flying conditions to IFR, as you can see along the west coast of the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island. IFR Pribilofs down to Adak Atco, westward to Chimiana 2, marginal VFR Nikolsky, Unalaska Dutch Harbor, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, right on up into Cook Inlet and the Susitna Valley, probably the Matanuska Valley as well to a lesser extent, and central southern Copper River Basin IFR off the north coast of the Panhandle. And for passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR, split the difference here. Adigan, I think, will be better. Call it VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR at times throughout the day. Same forecast for rainy. Windy, though. Marginal VFR early becomes VFR into the afternoon. Lowest conditions, southern approach, otherwise VFR. Isabel, VFR. And optimistically, Mentasta, VFR as well. Tonita, marginal becoming VFR. And Portage, marginal VFR. And for Chilcoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels, upper level low shifts inland. Cold pockets, pretty chilly actually for this time of the year, 4,000 feet. That puts snowfall level down to about 3,200 feet there, south central Alaska, western Alaska Range. Otherwise, back up to 10 to 12,000 feet over the Panhandle and out over the west central Bering Sea and Aleutians. And for icing, mixed icing of the light to isolated moderate variety, very isolated moderate, covering much of the interior, St. Lawrence Island. Icing free for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, as well as much of the Panhandle. Jet stream, upper trough right across the interior, so northerly flow, 70 to 85 knots. Eastern Bering Sea, southwest jet, 65 to 80 knots into the Panhandle. 9,000 feet lighter wind, same flow direction, 50 knots from the north of the Pribilofs, and 3,000 feet even lighter winds, pretty light over the interior. Turbulence-wise, looking not too bad. Light to isolated moderate chop for the western Arctic coast, Cape Lisburne, Point Hope, Adak and Atka, and maybe areas of the Panhandle and the Wrangell Mountains.
Well,
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with the National Weather Service, and joining us today, two more people to talk about the augmented reality sandbox. It's Alana Valaji. She's a University of Alaska Fairbanks mechanical engineering student, helped design and work on the details to make this new type of sandbox there. Thanks for joining us, Alana. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator for AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. It's a program funded nationally by the National Science Foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alana, tell us about how you changed and adapted this version of the augmented reality sandbox. It's a really cool tool.
So Gina approached us with 3 goals for this new version of the sandbox. They wanted it to be compact in a light system that could travel around the state. They wanted it to be child-oriented, so we designed the sandbox to have 3 different levels.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. You can have younger children, you can have high school kids. I guess I should say high school teenagers.
Sure.
And then we also designed it to be more marketable, user-friendly, so that this could be seen eventually in classrooms all over the place, all over the state.
Okay. And you had a big hand in this, but this was a team approach, right?
Definitely. It was a really good experience for myself, for George Stevens, who we'll see later.
One of our hand models today. Yeah.
For 2 other members who aren't here today, Cody Klingman and Austin Hunt. And it was just a really good learning experience all around.
Very good. And this is something that is part of your learning experience as well, so you get to check a box in your education.
Yeah,
right?
it's a requirement for seniors of mechanical engineering at University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Very good. Very good. Well, it is a wonderfully inquisitive tool, fun to play with, and I hope to get my hands in the sand here in just a little bit. But it's also part of a bigger program, something that we were talking about a moment ago, AKwx, and that's what Courtney is here to tell us more about. What is AKwx, and why do you need a sandbox?
Well, AKwx, as you mentioned, is a national program. We're funded nationally, but we're actually located statewide. We're at UAF, we're at UAA, we're in Southeast at UAS. And she mentioned, you know, taking the sandbox as an educational tool, and that's where I'm an outreach coordinator for the South Central test case.
Okay.
Our focus is on the Kenai watershed, and we are really interested in using these tools like the sandbox to interact with the students down there and get them interested in STEM and also communicate the research findings that we've been having throughout the state.
Okay. And one of those, as George and Eric are kind of changing the contours for us there from UAF to maybe something that resembles a little bit of something more of the Kenai watershed, which is one of your focuses for the study, right? And specifically looking at some of the changes there and how that impacts people and also the salmon.
Yes, it is all of our research is social and environmental.
Okay.
So we have social scientists working hand in hand with our environmental scientists. One of the things we're studying is Upper Russian Lake, and we have a researcher taking sediment cores from that lake. So one of the things we're going to use the sandbox to communicate is how the landscape changed over a long period of time, thousands of years, going from glacier, covered by glacier ice, to being filled with water. And then
that's what they're doing right now.
Exactly. So
live.
Exactly. So they're moving
cool.
the water around. And then I think they've got some props over there, because we're also going to go a little bit more in depth and explain how the salmon got there.
Okay.
So using
There's
these,
the salmon.
Exactly. Oh, I think there's a few more.
Yeah, we like more salmon in Alaska. More salmon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really taking the findings from our research grant and just trying to connect with the community and translate it in a really hands-on and exciting way, so people can, you know, interact with us as much as possible.
Well, sure. That makes the learning and the science real and quite literally in your face, rather than just some boring black and white paper that you have to read about. This is something that people can understand better because it's visual and they're touching and feeling and seeing these changes, right?
Yeah, and get them engaged. And then outreach is a huge component, and working with the younger students, and actually even, I mean, working with the UAF graduate and engineering students it's a huge part of our grant, and we really enjoy it.
No, it is wonderfully exciting. And so, Alana, you were telling us that this is built to travel.
Right.
And this is built to do more things than version 1. Where can this type of project go in Alaska? And what can it demonstrate?
I mean, we were hoping to eventually get to villages that were harder to reach, that you couldn't necessarily move a whole fixed instrument to, right? You need something that can pack up, fit in your truck bed. I mean, one of the most attractive parts of this project is that this was going to be something that was used past our graduation point. You know, this is
Okay.
going to be something that lives in the state for years.
Right, right. Well, it looks like you're well on your way with that. So what are, give me another example. What else can this show us? We've talked about the Kenai River watershed. What's the coolest thing that you've played in the sand with? What's your idea?
Well, I definitely enjoy the props, but we also like kind of building up a giant mound, and if you put some water behind it, you can make a little runway, I guess, and
Okay.
you know, demonstrate the effects of the hydrology by just putting up a dam and letting it all pour right down.
Okay.
And so that could, I think you mentioned it earlier, you could even demonstrate the effects of a tsunami
Right.
or
okay.
something along those lines.
So it's not just topography, but it's also hydrology
Yes.
and coastal surge mapping and some of the coastal changes that we're seeing here in Alaska, and seeing what the smaller changes in the sandbox might do to kind of a real effect of a slosh or a push of water up on the coast. Tsunami inundation mapping, or even glacial dam release, as some has been demonstrated before.
Yep.
So wow, that's just an impressive thing. That it seems like the possibilities are nearly endless with this, and probably even more ideas that are popping up in your head too.
Yeah, as we speak.
Very cool. All right. Well, if folks want to get more information about EPSCoR, you guys are online. You're on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. AKEPSCOR, right? EPSCoR, Alaska EPSCoR, that is. And again, you guys are funded by the National Science Foundation,
Yes,
so
we are.
more to come from that, and a longer-term study there. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Congratulations on your hard work there. This is really fun. And for now, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and I'm going to go play in the sandbox there. We'll see you next time. And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice analysis today, not too much different from yesterday. Still ice all along the central to eastern Beaufort Sea coast. A little thinner there on the east side, and then maybe north of the Barrier Islands, give or take there, but ice-free, sea ice-free for the western Arctic coast there southwest of Wainwright, all the way down to the Bering Strait. And otherwise, not a whole lot of change, nothing too significant expected over the next 4 or 5 days. And from there, going to the coastal water forecasts, we'll see for the Panhandle along the outer coastline, north coast, light winds, 5 foot seas with light winds from the west-southwest at 10 knots. South coast, 5 foot seas also with northwest breeze at 15 knots. Same forecast for Clarence Strait. And south winds 10 to 20 knots for the central and northern inside waters, seas running 2 to 4 feet. And for the outlook for Thursday, inside waters from really Dixon Entrance all the way up to Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, southerly winds 10 to 15 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet. And light south winds on the south coast, 10 knots, seas 5 feet. North coast, add 5 knots to that, 15. Sustained from the south with 5 foot seas. Prince William Sound for Wednesday, southeast winds 10 knots, seas slight, and west-southwest breeze for the North Gulf Coast 15 to 20 knots, seas around 5 feet. West winds for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay of 15 to 20 knots with 5 foot seas. Cook Inlet, south of the Forelands, looking at a southwest breeze tomorrow about 20 knots, so lighter winds than what was seen today, seas at about 6 feet. And northern Cook Inlet, south 20 knots, seas 4 feet. And then for Thursday, Cook Inlet, light winds from the south at 10 knots. Prince William Sound, variable to east winds at 10 knots, seas 2 feet or less. And for the North Gulf Coast, south to southeast breeze 10 to 15 knots, 3 to 4 foot seas. Barren Islands, southeast 15, 3 foot seas. Kamishak Bay, that's where the strongest winds will be, but they'll only be 20 knots from the southeast. Kodiak Island, west-southwest tomorrow, 15 to 20 knots. Strongest in Shelikof Strait, 4 to 5 foot seas. Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev, Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula, southwest 15 to 20 knots, seas up to 7 feet. And Bering Sea side of the peninsula, southwest 15, turn south 15 for Bristol Bay. And for Thursday, Bristol Bay, southwest 20 knots, seas up to about 6 feet. Small craft advisories for the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, southwest 30 knots. But Pacific side, southwest to 20, Kodiak Island, south to southwest 10 to 15 knots with 2 to 4 foot seas. And for the all of the Aleutians, west winds 25 knots for small craft advisories, seas running 8 to 10 feet. But from Kiska to Shimmy, a little lighter under small craft advisory levels there, but still west of 20 knots, seas at about 7 feet. Outlook for Thursday. South winds 25 knots for Shimmy to Kiska with 6-foot seas, Amchitka Island southwest at 20, and small craft advisories from Adak to Unalaska Island, Dutch Harbor. West winds 25 to maybe 30 knots with seas running 7 to 9 feet. For the southwest coast, pretty light winds south of Nunivak Island at 10 knots from the west, and Pribilof south 15, southwest 20 for St. Matthew Island to the Yukon Delta coast. Small craft advisory, St. Lawrence Island, southwest 25 knots, 6-foot seas. And small craft advisories continue for St. Lawrence Island and actually cover all of the eastern Bering Sea. Pribilof's picking up west winds at 30 knots, seas building to 10 feet. Southwest or west-southwest 25 knots for the southwest coast, and west 30 knots for St. Matthew Island, seas at about 8 feet. For the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, mostly south or west to south winds, variable 15 knots would cover it, with seas in the ice-free areas up to 2 feet. South 15 knots on the western Arctic coast, but small craft advisories from Cape Beaufort to Wales, northwest 25 knots, 7 to 8 foot seas. And for Thursday, those winds lighten up, turn southerly 20 knots from Wales to Cape Thompson, west-southwest 15 knots western central Arctic coast, eastern Beaufort Sea coast not much different, south to southwest at 15 knots. And for tonight, showers kind of diminish over the central interior there, but linger over the eastern Brooks Range, back to the northwest Noatak Valley area, Kobuk Valley, chance of showers, and that area of rain shifting into western Bristol Bay and down toward the eastern Aleutians Alaska Peninsula. More rain and showers come into Cook Inlet. And for tomorrow, another wet, cloudy, cool day for much interior Alaska, except the southern Panhandle could see temperatures near 70 again. Next day, not much different.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.